Afraid to come out of your shell? You are a beautiful butterfly that needs to be set free from your cocoon. Emerging into our authentic, gorgeous self and stepping into our greatness can be a difficult yet beautiful process. Tonight, we will discuss how to step out of your cocoon and bring your best self to the world. Emerging as ourselves can be difficult and beautiful. Deb Goldberg and Dr. Lynetta Willis.
Angel Heart Radio programs should not be used to replace your legal or medical advice. Welcome everyone to Angel Heart Radio. You are our focus. We want you to know that you matter in the world and that you're important to the world. We're here to remind you of just how valuable and needed you are right now. Help us to help others. If you like what you hear, tell your friends, post, tweet, pin, let everyone know how amazing Angel Heart Radio is. So again, welcome to Angel Heart Radio. Powered by love, Angel Heart Radio is sponsored by AngelLight777.com.
Welcome, everyone, to Angel Heart Radio. I'm your host, Deb Goldberg, and it brings me great pleasure to be here with you today. And it's an honor to serve you in the highest way that I can by bringing you messages of divine love and blessings for your life. You are dearly loved, cherished, and blessed. We have a great show for you tonight. I'm going to give you the call-in phone number because we'd love to hear from you. It's 347-202-0232. And the other podcast hosts are Anaya Joy Halili. She is the founder of Angel Heart Radio, and her show airs every other Friday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern and Saturday, 10 o'clock a.m. Queensland time. And if you'd like to get in touch with Anaya, she can be reached at AngelLight777.com. Annette McCoy is the other podcast host, and her show airs on Tuesdays, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern USA time, and Wednesdays, 10 o'clock a.m. Queensland time. The show originates from Australia, so that's why we always talk about Queensland time. If you are interested in knowing more about me or working with me or my books, you can find me at debbianngoldberg.com, and you can find my books under the book series A Divinely Ordered Life on Amazon. So let's get into tonight's show. I want to bring on my co-host. I had a guest host tonight. Carolyn was supposed to be joining us, but the last minute she was not able to be here. But luckily, Dr. Lynetta Willis is with us, who is my co-host. She's been on many a times with Carolyn and I and other guests. And so I'm going, Lynetta is a psychologist and author of the children's book My Forgotten Self. She's also the creator of the Elemental Living, Parenting, and Personal Leadership Program. Excuse me. Welcome, Lynetta.
Hi. Hello.
Hello. I'm so glad that you're here with me.
Yes, it's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. And we haven't had a show, just the two of us, for a while now. So
I know. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Man.
So Carolyn came up with this topic, and but I thought, oh, this is still a great topic for us to talk about, even though she's not going to be here. And I'm sorry that we'll miss her because she's always wonderful to have on the show. So,
yes.
Emerging as ourselves, going through this transformation process. And, I was just talking to Lynetta. She wrote this wonderful children's book called My Forgotten Self. And I thought, this is great to talk about with tonight because we all have this being. I don't know what you want to call it. We call it a self. But really, I believe it's a divine being that is here, that is supposed to emerge from underneath all of what human life brings us. And so I thought, well, maybe you'd like to talk about that a little bit, and and how that fits into my forgotten self and what we're talking about today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fits perfectly. Interestingly enough, we talk about the authentic, beautiful self, and the basic premise of my forgotten self is that we do have that we are divine, and we forget that. We forget our power. We forget our true nature. And when we are able to look past the preconditioned beliefs, the little girl in the book, her name is Tiev, she is she's discouraged by her well-meaning family and told all of these things that she shouldn't do with her life. And she ends up having this mystical experience with divine presence, God, whatever you want to call it, and realizes that she is inherently worthy and that she has unimaginable power within her to do so many wonderful things. And I know for me personally, I'm still evolving. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I have arrived and I'm in perfect alignment with my authentic, beautiful self 100% of the time. That'd be awesome. But yeah, no. But it's been a long journey and it's been a long road. And the first thing that I had to do was to realize that I even had an authentic, beautiful self, right? Mm-hmm. And really get past, like Tia, a lot of the preconditioned beliefs that I had about myself that served me at some point, but were no longer serving me and were actually weighing me down and covering on my light. And really being able to move past those and uncover that which is always there, that which is always has been within me. Mm-hmm. And within us all, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is basically everybody's story. Is that my forgotten self is everybody's story, and I guess we're all here to point where we're awakened, and we recognize that there's so much more to us than we ever imagined. That we have this power inside, that this divine presence is within all of us. And this divine presence is always wanting us to be in relationship with it so it can cultivate and help transform us into who we came here to be, who we were meant to be. And the process never ends. It's constantly unfolding.
It is. I agree. And it's really, in some ways, it's like an uncovering, right? That authentic self, it's always there. It doesn't go anywhere. It's not something that I personally think is born or grows per se, but I do think that we grow into it as we uncover it and become more and more aware of it, which for me is beautiful because when I remind myself of that, when I find myself resting in fear, just the other day, this happened to me where I entered into a fear-based mindset, and I was able to say to myself, okay, you've been here before, and you've gotten out before, and you will get out again. This mindset is not going to last forever because there is another side. There is another place of peace, place of understanding that you always find within you. Right? So just ride the wave and understand this is just a part of you that's carrying fear related to a situation, and it will pass, right? So it's not so much like, oh, I have to wait for this divine self to light upon me. No, it's there. Just in that moment, I was overcome by a fear mindset, right? So just sort of realizing and separating a little bit from it and saying, I see you for what you are, and I get that because it really was it was coming from a very protective place within me, and I get that. But realizing like, okay, but you are not me,
Mhm.
and I can just ride this emotion out. I can ride the sensations that are coming up for me out, and I will return back
Mhm.
to baseline, if you will, if I just stay, open and ready to allow this wave of fear to ride through me,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's
Mhm.
awesome, to get to the point where you recognize that there's we're so diverse inside that
Mhm. There's a
we
lot of
have
noise going on in there.
there's a lot of noise going on. There's a lot of visitors came along. Like, what did you say in your luggage? What did you say the last time we were talking? You brought all these visitors in your luggage with you to go on vacation with us on planet Earth, uh, right?
Right, it was something like that, or like all the different
Yeah.
clothes we put on, or something. Yeah.
Uh huh. Right.
It's
Right.
so true.
It is like our ego, the ego, the will, our wounded parts of us. There's just so many different aspects of us that you're not aware that there's all this stuff going on inside of you. You're just feeling it, not having the awareness that this is just not who you are. These are travelers that came along that makes the experience, gives it context and stories and drama and uh and I liked what you said about to get out from underneath the programming. We've all been programmed by life, but from our family, from society, telling us what the rules are, what we can do, what we can't do. And when you get in relationship with this divine presence, there's no truth to any of it. Um, so, uh, and I could use myself as an example, is that I knew I wasn't sure what it was. I call that divine presence God, and I always knew there was something there, but I wasn't sure what it was. I didn't know. I didn't understand how to have a relationship with it. I just knew it was there, and throughout my life, I could feel moments where, like, I was just being pushed or swayed to do something, um, or I would get a hint of, like, oh, I need to pack up my office because I'm going to be leaving it, and it would just be like an energetic shift inside of me. So what I wanted to bring up tonight is that divine presence is inside of you and helping you move to the next step to keep rising higher into your that forgotten self, that beautiful divine being that you are. And it sometimes it's difficult because you're asked, like you're talking about fears, and we have so many fears inside of us that we don't realize how fearful we are until you actually start to put yourself out there. And
Mhm.
yeah, and I know that upon my awakening, and it was so abrupt, I'm so happy about it. I thank God and Jesus every day for waking me up. But it took till I was 56, and so I had been living like buried under this story about who Debbie was, who people told me I was, who my family, the experiences that I had, what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing. What my role was in family and society and relationships. And I was so buried underneath all of the programming, not even realizing that there's something so beautiful inside that needs to emerge. And as you keep being brought the next thing, and it could be from just little things, because or big things that come your way where you have to step up and cope with the fear. Know that the fear is always there. It's whether you choose to let it stop you from taking your next step.
Mhm. No, it's so true. I mean, I was the same way. Growing up, I did not think very highly of myself at all. I had all kinds of core beliefs that I wasn't worthy, I wasn't important, not good enough, all of these things. And when you were talking, what came to mind was when I was very young, or not very young, but I was in middle school, and a friend of mine and I went to a concert. It was MC Hammer, Boyz II Men, and TLC. I still remember it. It was my first concert ever. And sadly, I'm not kidding, like one of two that I've ever been to in my life. I don't go to concerts much. But anyway, they used a lot of pyrotechnics, so there was a lot of things blowing up. And when I left, I didn't realize it, but my eardrums were, I don't know, they were closed. I don't know what happened to them. But the only way that I realized that my eardrums were closed and that I wasn't hearing fully was when they opened up, like a month later. I still remember I was sitting in class, and then everything got, like, way louder. And I was like, what just happened? There was, like, a pop in my ear, and everything just got really loud. And that's when I realized, like, holy crap, I haven't been listening. I haven't been hearing for, like, 2 months. And so I feel like that's kind of how we are, right? We don't realize that we're asleep or that we're operating under these preconditioned things until we have, it can be a mystical awakening, or the other thing is it doesn't even have to be like that. It could just be hearing something different that resonates with you, right? And that's why I always suggest to people, I invite them, you always have those people, whether it be people you know personally or maybe somebody who has a podcast or something, that there's just something that draws you to them, even though they're saying things that you're not quite familiar with, you don't understand fully. You're just drawn to them. Hang out with those people. Listen to those people, right? Because those are the people who can help you to your ears to pop, right? Those are the people who can give you the food that your soul needs to really be nourished and have that awakening experience. So I think, being able to commit ourselves to say, I'm going to become more aware of how my preconditioning is leading me to stay disconnected from who I truly am. Right? And then looking for those experiences, those opportunities to connect with people or situations or circumstances, to set that intention that allow you to become more aware of that and allow you to become more connected to who you truly are, I think can be really powerful. We're all waiting for that ear-popping experience.
Yeah. And, so that's such good advice to, start listening, start poking your head out there. I know that, for 56 years, my ears were closed. I closed them myself. I didn't want to hear anything that my family had to say. And they just stayed that way until God opened them one day and he yelled in my ear and said, "Are you ready to listen?" I'm like, yes.
I'm here. What? I can hear you.
I can hear you. Oh my gosh, I can hear you. And it's inside.
Exactly.
It's inside, not outside. So,
exactly.
Yeah. So we are being spoken to from within all the time. It's whether we are taking the time to be quiet or still or meditate so that we can actually hear that divine presence speaking with us, nurturing us, loving us, giving us guidance as to what is the next thing what would be in our best interest, what would be so loving to us, because there is a plan for everybody. There is a divine plan for every single person. I call it this is Earth is like a theater. It's a stage, and we've all been casted for a role, and we're all doing a great job, but we're a lot of us have not woken up, and so we're still playing the drama role of, from the ego and the wounds that haven't been healed inside of us, and believing that we're separate from the divine. So, um, if you allow yourself to under to get in relationship with that presence inside, you are completely guided. And I say God has the script. He wrote the script for each one of us of what we were supposed to do here. And unless we get in connection to that, and being awoke, be awakened, and being in that relationship and getting guided into that script as it keeps unfolding is so much more powerful and wonderful than just not being aware of it. So you always get surprised because you don't get the whole script. You get little tiny pieces of it as you go along. And that was all purposeful because God wanted you to come back to Him to get the script from Him, and that's what we're supposed to do.
It's funny, Deb. I wonder too. Even if we were given the entire script, I'm not even sure that we would follow it or be able to decipher it all the time.
Right.
It'd just be like, I don't know what that says. I got nothing.
Right. Or you just forget to even look at it.
Right.
Oh, that's
exactly.
right. Oh, I'm so distracted with life. I'm so distracted with myself and stuck inside my own head that, I forgot I was given a map and I forget to look at the map.
Oh, what's a map?
Yeah.
So I'm going to put you on the spot, Deb. How do you do that? How do you tap in and go within and get quiet? And so 2 questions. How do you get quiet enough to hear it? And how do you discern that it is the higher self or God speaking to you versus another part of you?
Mhm.
So how do you get quiet and how do you know?
Okay. So, well, the first time I made that connection is, I could say that maybe over 25 years ago, I had a dream, and I know it was divinely given to me of what my career was supposed to be, that I had to go to college and get a degree and be a therapist. And so that was all laid out in my dream, and I knew exactly that it came from God. And then, I kind of shut down to that and until I was 56 when I was in a meditation with Margaret Paul. And there, during the meditation, it was like, knock, knock, I'm here. And through visuals, seeing everybody connects differently. You can hear within yourself. You can hear that voice talking to you. You can see visual images. Okay. And so meditation is the best way, or just being really quiet and still and not being distracted by anything. Or you're always spoken to, like your heart translates. So maybe you haven't actually heard a spoken word inside yourself, but your heart is translating what is being spoken to you, and you just know that's what you're being told. It's like you can read your heart, and God is talking to you through that. So now I just started to understand that there was other parts of me when I went to that meditation. And when I heard the first actually it was all visual the first time I actually connected, and it was to Jesus. But I didn't know it was Jesus at the time because I was Jewish and I didn't have a relationship with Jesus, and I didn't understand why it would be Jesus, and so I just thought he was some cool guy that was so loving, and it unfolded in my mind just like a movie would. But except I was not in control of it. It was just like, you need to see this. And and that's what most of us are like, that we need to see for proof. And so here this whole visual movie started playing out in my mind. But and then I kept practicing the meditation and going to, because I created a happy place, which was by a pool, and so Jesus would come and sit there with me. And probably after a couple weeks of that, I thought, come, it's so sweet just sitting here with him, and you could just feel his presence, his divine presence, and all you did is, it was just like oozing love. And then I thought to myself, how come we don't talk to each other? We just sit here with each other. And I was just thinking this to myself. And all of a sudden I heard a voice say, well, just say hello.
You never asked me to talk.
I said, just say hello. And I heard it in a male voice. And so when I was in the middle of the meditation, I said, okay. I said, hi. And then he said hi, and then we just started talking. You're talking. It's like heart to heart. I could hear, so I was seeing images, and I was actually talking within the image. It's just like watching a movie. We were having a conversation, and so the voice, when you hear divine presence. Some people, like I said, will actually hear a voice. I hear it both ways. I hear a voice and I relate to God as a male, even though I know there is no male, there's no gender. It's all completely energy, just complete love. Consciousness is just consciousness. But I relate to that energy as male. And so I hear Jesus talk as a male, and I hear God talk as a male. But I also got introduced to my higher self and angels. And so when I hear their voices, it's always very peaceful and loving. It's not like hearing your ego voice that stirs you up, or it doesn't leave you feeling peaceful. So that's a major difference, is that when you are talking to divine presence, it's sort of like a light bulb goes off in your head, and I guess the Course in Miracles would call it like a holy instant, where all of a sudden some knowledge or some truth came through, and you're just like, a light bulb went off in your head that you didn't understand. That's divine presence talking to you when that comes through, whether you heard a voice or not. And so that is and so lots of people have moments where they get some knowledge, divine knowledge, or they see something that they never could see before, or whatever the case might be, or are led in some way, guided to do something. So, like I said, whether you're hearing a voice or not, that is the divine presence, and that is something that needs to be nurtured and get to the point of where you're having conversations with that divine presence all day long.
Pray without ceasing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what should I have for lunch? What would be a great thing for me to do right now that would be very loving for myself? You start asking questions like that. That's what Margaret said when you start doing it. And it was just awesome. And so every single person, well, I look at it as we are all God. We're all one. You can't separate it. We're all consciousness. And so God is you. Everybody says I am, right? And I'll say I am. I am one with God. I am God. But when recently God said to me, I am you, Debbie. And that just kind of
Mm.
blew my mind, 'cause looking at it from the other perspective, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
So,
So you are me, I
so
am you.
yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so knowing that this presence is inside of you, guiding you, and wants to transform you into the beautiful being that you are. And we do go through all kinds of trials and tribulations of difficult times and traumas and all of this stuff because we've been listening to our ego.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because what I found is helpful too is as you go through those experiences and you start to and this is the funny thing too that I've learned. I've learned to I learned at some point, now I'm able to discern much more clearly. But at some point I learned to stop asking, is this God or is this just a really, really wise part of myself or a part of my ego that just talks like, in a really cool voice? And I realized I didn't really have to ask that because I could just watch things play out. So if I go in one direction, well, how does that feel? And then
Mhm.
go in another direction, well, how does that feel? And then it got to a point where I was able to recognize, like I know exactly what it feels like in my body when I am coming from that place, and from that, what is it, authentic, brilliant self. I
Mhm.
from God, I know exactly what it feels like, and I know what it feels like when not so much. And usually, it's interesting that the information or the guidance that I receive is often familiar. And what I mean by that, it might be something that I hadn't considered, but it often feels like a remembering, like oh yeah, that is probably what I
Mhm.
should do. Okay, got it. It's like it was
Mhm.
already there. A lot of times when and it feels like almost like sinking into a warm bath. Like even if it's
Mhm.
something that when I'm completely blended with my more egoic self that I would push back on, when I'm
Mhm.
in that space, I'm like, I not only does it make sense, but it feels right. Like, oh yeah, that's it right there. So it's really, I think, too, like you're saying, the more that you start asking for guidance, even on the smallest things, just start focusing on how does it feel in my body when I'm connected or when I'm
Mhm.
aware, rather, of
Mhm.
the connection, because I don't believe we're ever disconnected. But how does it
Mhm.
feel in my body when I'm aware of that connection, and starting to learn that for ourselves so that
Right.
we can be clear, when it happens.
Yeah. That's excellent. That is really excellent. So when I'm connected, I feel at peace.
Mhm.
And I also feel like energy kind of rushing through me. I don't know if you call it
Mhm.
spiritual energy or whatever. It's like I'm resonating in this energy, and it's peaceful and it's enchanting and it's loving, um and so you can definitely feel when you're connected.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
always we're always really connected. It's the ego that this trance that the ego has us in that keeps pulling us to get stuck back in our head or be so focused on things outside of ourselves, that makes
Mhm.
it appear that we're not connected. So,
Right.
but the truth is there you're always connected. So, let's talk about some of the things that happen when you're being asked to rise, to go a little higher,
Mm.
to try something new, to get pushed out of your comfort zone. Um,
Mhm.
you know, and we go through those things just in living life too, as we move into different stages of life.
Right. Mhm.
So it's
When you
pushing
ask
us
that
out.
question, the image that I get a lot of images in case
Uh-huh.
people haven't picked
Yeah.
up on that. And a lot of images. And the image that I got was a really funny one. I don't even know if do they have the Macy's Day Parade anymore with the huge floats?
Yeah.
Do they still have that?
Uh-huh.
Okay, what I got was this
Thanksgiving.
image of, yes. You know how they're the people on the side of the float holding down the float with the rope and they're walking along? That's the image I got when you said, what happens when we try to step out into our, into our greatness? It was this image of, these little people on the side holding us down with the ropes as they walk down the road. I think the first reaction often is, oh, no, stay safe, stay in the hole. Where are we going? Stay on the ground.
Right.
Even though our natural impetus is to expand and float and, expand into the space that we're given, which is infinite in many ways. It's like, no, there are these little parts of us that are like, no, don't fly away.
Right. I love that. You always have the best images, analogies. It's so funny. And that's basically what's happening is all these different travelers that came with us are pulling, or they're holding all of the strings, keeping us down, right? And it could be fears, beliefs, stories we made up about ourselves, stories that other people made up about us. I call this all soul print energy. But, programming, there's always something inside of us, if not outside of us, looking, like it's trying to hold us back. But we have all of these things inside of us that are, like you said, don't go there, don't fly away, don't you don't know where you're going.
Exactly. You don't know what's up there. You don't know what's out there. Stay here. Stay safe. Another thing that I think happens is, and I do, this is why I love doing a lot of the family empowerment work that I do. The people around us can sometimes get uncomfortable. I know last time we were on with Carolyn, I talked about stable misery, and just that sense that it's not just within us where even though we're not very happy, we're comfortable and we're safe, so we stay where we are. Even though expanding and evolving might ultimately feel better and ultimately lead us to a better place, it's just easier. It's stable here. I don't really have to do much or move or take risks, even though I might be a little miserable.
Right.
And the same thing is for the people around us, right? So they're like, no, I don't understand what you're doing. This doesn't make sense. You're talking what's happening. And they may even try to join the, grab a rope and try to keep that down. And it might not be conscious, I think all of these rope grabbers, all of these float regulators really are just, they're protective. They're trying to protect in so many ways, like T.F.'s family in the book. They were very well-meaning. They were protecting her, so they thought, but we just have to be aware of when those people inside of us or outside of us, whether, when we feel like our expansion is being limited in some ways. And once we come to that awareness, then we can act on it. But just ask, like, am I limiting myself, or is this environment or these circumstances, are they limiting me in some way? Is there a way that I can expand beyond this? What am I afraid of? Just really starting to get curious about where we are, especially if we're not happy with where we are.
Yes. And you don't really have to know what your divine plan is because you get taught it. It just keeps unfolding if you're willing to work with it. So, because, we've also been given free will, which is also one of those cords that are being held. And, the ego is constantly pulling on that cord. So I think we've all been given a dream. We've all been given something that we know that we're passionate about, or something that's really, really important to us. And some of us have forgotten that we've had that dream or passion, or that you're passionate about. You're passionate, but you really don't know where to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's, a lot of people don't have the desire to, like you said, they get stuck in that stability that you talked about. Is, what did you call it?
Mm-hmm. Stable misery.
Stable misery. Or yeah, that they don't really have a desire to put themselves out there, or to grow, to personally grow. And from person to person, you have all of this, whether they're interested in growing or not. But I do know that everybody has been given a special dream, a passion just for themselves. And many people just forgot about it.
Mhm. Mhm.
The life just happened, and something that you had thought, even when you were younger, it could have been as a child, a teenager, that there was something so important that you were so interested in, and then as you kept growing, and life happens, you forget.
Yeah, yeah. Until you get that little nudging. Yeah,
Mhm.
that inkling of like, wait, like almost like you left something. Like, did I leave the stove on?
Uh
Like
huh.
that. Like, what did I
Right.
forget? Something's not
I
right
was
here.
supposed to do something.
Right. Right. Oh yeah, I lived my purpose. That's what it was. I left my purpose in
Mhm.
my other pants. Darn it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it. It's so true. It's so true.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes we don't even recognize it as a as for me, I'll speak personally for me. I went through a lot of I did a lot of overachieving and
Mhm.
just showing up in my relationships in a way that wasn't serving me or anyone around me. I
Mhm.
wasn't really. I was trying to toe the line and be good and acceptable and enough,
Mhm.
and it put me in a situation where I didn't even realize that finding my purpose or even asking that question would be helpful or was a component that was missing.
Mhm.
So I think for
Mm.
some people it could be that sense of, well, no, what's wrong is, I hate my job, or what's wrong
Mhm.
is, fill in the blank. And not saying that stuff is necessarily right in that situation, but it could be that maybe there's some other questions that you could be asking, like, what does fulfill me? What excites me? What do I get lit up about?
Mhm.
What, and I know not everybody, but many people have probably heard the question, if you could do anything for free, what would it be?
Mhm.
You could do work and you could just do it all day long. What would it be? But just sort of, it's easy, I think, to get stuck in focusing on what's wrong and what
Mhm.
feels bad and what is
Mhm.
draining. And if we flip that on its other side, what lives there is what brings me joy, what's
Mhm.
fulfilling, what lights me
Mhm.
up. And the more we start focusing on that vision, the more we'll see little nuggets, little breadcrumbs
Mhm.
appearing on the pathway, and people and circumstances. At least this is how it worked for me, in situations that start to guide me and start to lead me. And the
Mhm.
more that I walked on that path, the more often I found myself. I found that
Mhm.
connection to that authentic, brilliant self. Because I believe
Mhm.
that when we're on whatever path we're supposed to be on in that season of our life for that purpose,
Mhm.
there we are. For me, I feel that connection more. It feels greater. It feels stronger. So sometimes just figuring out, where am I supposed to be? what some
Mhm.
people would say, what does God have for me? That's how you choose to ask that question.
Mhm.
It can be helpful to kind of
Mhm.
pull ourselves out of that stable misery and at least get the vision
Mhm.
that we can hold as we begin to search for the breadcrumbs on how to get there.
Right. Excellent. Yeah, because if you start asking those questions, then what'll happen is you'll and start putting your what you want, talking about what you want in your prayers or however meditation, however you want to do that. You start, like you said, you see all the breadcrumbs and the nuggets are right in front of you. Like all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden something falls in your lap that, or somebody says something that you're interested in, and all of these things, it's sort of like you start seeing with a new pair of eyes that everything outside of you is there to help you get to the next place.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is
Exactly.
there. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think when I was, I'm trying to. It was in the 80s, probably. I was like praying for 5 years. I was not in a happy marriage. I didn't know what I I wanted to do with my life, like where I was, just nothing was working. Um, and I kept praying to help me understand what my path is, that um that I want something that's going to make me really happy, and that's when I got that dream. But it was like, I'm sure over the 5 years I was getting all kinds of messages, but I was so grounded in life and not inside myself that I'm sure I missed lots of them. And then I finally had a dream that just laid it all out, what I was supposed to do. And so you talk about getting this dream and it's divine. And here I am in my 30s. I have two children. I'm married. Um, and I'm being told to go to school, go to college. I'd never been to college before. I wasn't ever a great
Mm.
student, and but it was so strong, and I knew it was so right. And the next
Mm.
day I enrolled in school. I enrolled in college. And
It's
of
awesome.
course, my husband at the time thought I was nuts. He's like, "How do you have a dream and you just enroll in school?" And I never heard you talk about doing therapy with people, or I never even knew that was something that interested you. And I'm like, I never even thought about it, but this is what I'm being told to do, so I'm going to go listen to it. And
Mhm.
never look back. And so there, that was also the end of my marriage. So you talk
Ah.
about going through a transition. Here's me coming out
Mhm.
of this cocoon in my 30s, and I have such a divine, powerful message that I need to go follow it, and then here's a divorce, right?
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
So these things happen, and because we also have been so programmed on earth of what's right and wrong, good and bad, which there's no truth to any of that stuff, because we're just here for our journey,
Mm.
just like everybody else is. And so you start looking at, well, that shouldn't happen, right? Or that just made this wonderful dream. Now I have to deal with a divorce, right?
Right. Mhm.
So, you think about all the different steps of transformation, of growing and coming out of this cocoon. They take on all kinds of forms. And so here I was, I start going to college and I love it and I love learning and I'm a good student and I love what I'm going to school for. And then of course I loved my career. So, isn't
Yeah.
it's really interesting how, yeah, you have these difficult things come up, and yet it's beautiful at the same time.
It's so true. And sometimes I think those contrasting experiences are there to help us to really see the miracles that we would otherwise miss or be complacent towards, you know? So it's like if I have if I have a off-white screen up and you put a white piece of paper in front of it, I'm not really going to notice it. I mean, like, what's the big deal? But if you have me stare at a black screen for 10 minutes and then all of a sudden you turn it white, wow, now that I saw, that I get, you know? So I think sometimes our experiences serve as great contrast so that we're able to really see, like, oh, there it is. I got it. You know, I get the message. I'm seeing it. I'm paying attention. I'm listening. And they can be helpful, albeit painful. You know, I know I've had those experiences before. I was in college. I was in a really abusive relationship, and it really supported all of the mindsets that I had about myself, that I wasn't worthy, that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't important. All of those things were supported in that. And then I got out of that and had this mystical experience where it was just this instantaneous realization that we are all worthy and we are all amazing and we are all important. We're all valuable. And it was such a contrast to what I believe to be true about myself that I paid attention. And I didn't really do anything about it until I got married and we were about to have our first child. And then I realized, like, shoot, I need to transform some stuff or else I'm going to pass this stuff on to my kids. So that's when I really started to work on it. But that seed was planted. Right? And it was such a big contrast from what I knew to be true about myself, which was all completely false. And there, in some ways, you might think I'm crazy, but, you know, I'm actually, there are parts of me that's actually grateful for that relationship because it really forced me to embody what I was not. And I can really relate to people who are there, who have been there, because I'm like, I get it. I get feeling completely unworthy and looking around and thinking everyone else is way more valuable than you, you know, and everybody else deserves so much more goodness than you. You know, I get it. I've been there, you know. And so being able to have those experiences and work through them and grow through them, it was a part of my evolutionary journey. And I went through it, and it's gotten me to where I am today. Like you said, we all have these different paths, these different journeys, take us in different directions, to ultimately help us to awaken to what is, what always is, what always will be. You know, divine presence.
Right? Yes. It's so fascinating. It is. We have an Earth story. We have individual stories, and you know, I was really liking how you were describing, you know, that the relationship that you had in college, because you were talking about your mindset of what you believe about yourself, and therefore that's what we bring to ourselves. So we are constantly developing this story, and it shows up on the outside. The story we think about ourselves keeps showing up on the outside. And so it is really important to go through all of this transformation. And I believe that divine presence is the only thing that can transform you and heal you in the way that transforms you into the divine presence that you are. So, there's all kinds of other things out there that are such great help, and they will help you in amazing ways. But nothing transforms your divine presence into its highest, other than God itself or Source, whatever anybody believes. So, and it's being done all day long to you, and you don't even realize it. But yeah, so it's really important to start transforming and understanding how your own mindset and the beliefs you have about yourself need to shift to something, to excellence, to the true nature of who you really are, so that you can help yourself move into that transformation. Because it's so easy to get stuck into those ego mindsets that tell you that they're all lies. They're telling you things that you're not.
Right.
So, yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
go ahead.
No, I was about to say it's true, and a lot of the work that I do, a lot of things I talk about have to do. I mean, I've talked about the four horsemen mindset of
Mhm.
pain, blame, shame, and avoidance that many of us are raised through, and not in this. Not I'm not coming from a place of shaming my or anyone's family, but it's something that's intergenerationally. It's passed down from generation to
Mhm.
generation. All this intergenerational drama,
Mhm.
and I woke up one day and said, I have to stop. Like these four horsemen have to retire with me. I can't pass them on to
Mhm.
my kids. They were already impacting my marriage and how I was showing up there and other important relationships in my life, right? So being able to realize at the foundation, at the core of who I truly was, that was where I became tethered. I was no longer tethered to my achievements. I was no longer tethered because those are the things I was trying to tether myself to. And every time they
Mhm.
shifted or every time I didn't do as well as I thought I should have, I'm falling flat on my
Mhm.
face and in despair, right? But when I tether myself to, oh, wait, no, 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 I'm a divine being. That's right. That's right.
Mhm.
And I am worthy and I am deserving and I am love
Mhm.
and I am loved,
Mhm.
all of that
Mhm.
stuff. Even if I'm not showing up in that way in the moment, having that
Right.
realization and having that memory that no, I am tethered to that,
Uh-huh.
really, really helps me to, and it's a lot of work I do with people, it helps me to show up in ways that mirror
Mhm.
that, right?
Mhm.
And that's how, I'll get on my soapbox, but I personally believe that's how we're going to transform this world. It's by transforming families and transforming how we communicate with each other and transforming how we relate to each other and
Mhm.
transforming the way in which we use our energy towards
Mhm.
each other, especially our kids, but also
Mhm.
towards other adults, you know?
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think being tethered to that, you're dead on, being tethered to that realization that we are inextricably connected
Mhm.
to divine essence and divine presence. And that's all there really is.
Mhm.
Even when it feels different, even when it
Mhm.
feels like that we're not,
Mhm.
that no, yes, we are. And being able to tap into that when we need to, and and
Mhm.
and realize that connection when we need to is key.
Mhm. Yeah, and actually we need to do it all the time because that
Mhm.
connection, like if you know, we need to be dependent on that connection because
Oh yes,
that
ideally.
yeah,
Absolutely.
that
Mhm.
ideally we need to be dependent that on that connection, that we're not dependent on anything else but that divine presence. So
Mhm.
um and that we're not doing this by ourselves. You have a
Mhm.
whole you have all the support you need inside of you and that's given outside of you for this all of what how you make your life change,
Mm.
how the divine makes your life change because you really are not doing it, you're being guided into it. So well, I can't believe we're out of time already,
I
Lynetta.
know. What? This
What a
happens all
great
the time, Deb.
conversation. I know. So why don't you tell people how to get in touch with you?
Yes, yes. You can find me on my website. It's Dr. as in Ladybug, Willis, WILLIS.com. DrLWillis.com. I'm also on Facebook at, I think it's at Dr. L. Willis is my Facebook handle. So, yes, reach out to me.
Yes, and thank you so very much for being here with me tonight. I'm sorry Carolyn wasn't here with us, but
Yeah.
yeah, but I'm so happy and thrilled that you are here, and it is always an honor. You're just such an awesome person and are filled with so much wisdom and light, and I just love it. And
Likewise.
Oh, thanks. And I just hope our audience soaked up all of this conversation. So thanks again.
Thank you.
And oh, you're very welcome. When in doubt, never underestimate the power of prayer. You are being listened to and heard throughout the universe, and it always responds with infinite and eternal love. Remember to go inside and listen through your heart for the whispers of heaven. I love you, and God bless you.
You've been listening to another fabulous program on Angel Heart Radio. Our goal is to remind you of how much you matter in the world and to let you know that we appreciate who you are in the world. You can check out who's on, when we're on, and who our guests are at angelheartradio.com. Everything is there. It's all just one click away. Angel Heart Radio programs are powerful tools to help you in your life and your life experience. They are not intended, nor should they, be used to replace your medical or legal advice. The views expressed by hosts, co-hosts, callers, guests, and associates should not be construed as advice from Angel Heart Radio.